Okay, so now we're all set to gesso our panels with our traditional gesso. Again, we're using the double boiler and the hot plate. You want the hot plate also, you don't want it to be over 150 degrees. I recommend somewhere between 120 to 140 is sufficient. The glue has to be applied warm. And you want the glue to be the consistency of a little heavier than milk, but like cream, like a heavy cream. Um, and you want to make sure there's no lumps in the gesso at all. Make sure that the marble dust or the whiting in the rabbit skin glue, make sure that they all flow. That's why I was using that brush there to make sure it flows off. And when you first start putting the gesso on, you're going to notice that it looks like nothing's going on. It's quite transparent, and that's because the material is sucking it in. So for your first 2, 3 coats, you'll notice gradually it starts to get more and more opaque. I will also take my fingers and I will push the gesso into the weave of the material for the first couple coats. And the reason I do that is to avoid getting pinholes in the surface or getting air bubbles on the surface, which will create pinholes. Not good to have in traditional gesso, because if you're using a tempera or oil, that can get into that pinhole and get under there and possibly cause cracking. So you want to make sure that you're really getting it into the weave of the material. The first coat, as you can see, I'm putting on horizontally, and then I'll move the panel and I'll do it vertically. And I'll do this throughout. I put on about 8 to 12 coats. Depends. I see how, as it goes along, I see how much the gesso is being built up on the surface. Another thing you can do, which I don't have in the video here, is a scraper. And you can use a scraper to make sure that you're getting no high points from the material. Sometimes the material will have a little, little bunched up piece, and you want to make sure that you can get rid of those little high points. It'll also make the surface more smooth. Allow approximately 20 to 30 minutes between coats. You don't want to put it on too quickly, and the reason for that is you could lift off the gesso you just previously put on. So it's a good thing to have several panels going at once. Allow yourself a good 3 to 4 hours to be able to do this whole process, and don't rush it through. So we're at the point now, this is about the 4th coat going on. As you can see, it starts to get more opaque and it starts to go on a lot easier. And you can sand between coats, some people do. I will sand lightly, with about an 800 grit piece of sandpaper. About the 4th or 5th coat, I'll lightly sand it. Another thing that I don't have on this video is the sanding process of the panel at the end. I do the sanding outside. I recommend doing it away from the space where you work, and just because you can creates a lot of dust. So when I go to sand, I use sanding blocks that go anywhere from 220 all the way up to 1500 grit. In the 220, the lower grits, I use very, very lightly. I don't rub or push down. I don't rub or push down with any of them. You want to just lightly do it and gradually move all the way up. And once you get to that higher grit sandpaper, you'll notice you'll get this very smooth surface, a surface almost like a piano key, almost like a piece of ivory, and that's what you want to strive for with the surface. So, and I once the panels are done being gesso, before I go to that point, I allow them to dry a couple days, 2 to 3 days before that. And when that's all done, your panels are all set to be painted on.